Kate is an immigration attorney based in Austin, Texas. She deals with this all the time. Kate, thanks for joining us tonight. Your thoughts on the executive order issued by Joe Biden today?
I don't think it's a good idea. I can certainly understand the motivation. And I think all of us understand there's been all of this talk about the border and what's happening at the border and fear around the border. And so it could make sense to react with an enforcement mechanism like this. And I can see how a lot of people would think that it was a good move. But the reality of the situation is that we have asylum seekers along our southern border, many of whom qualify for protection. And what we did several years ago was we shut down the border for the most part to all asylum seekers. And we went from a system where anyone could come to the border and apply and be screened. They would be detained and they would be deported if they didn't qualify. But there was a mechanism that was accessible for applying for asylum. And then we changed that through various policies, through COVID, through the Trump presidency, et cetera. And so this is just another one of those steps. And the reality of what occurs when we implement enforcement mechanisms like this along the border are that it increases chaos and confusion, it increases cartel violence, and it does not decrease the needs of migrants. And so we're left holding the same bag. And so it's a politically motivated action by the Biden administration. I understand it. I understand why it's happening, and I don't agree with it.
Is it all political? When you say you understand it, Kate, does it mean you're saying this is pure politics? Nothing more than that, because will it make any difference?
That is what it is. This is pure politics. And the reason is that immigration is a really hot button, powerful issue. It works for a lot of people to talk about how scary and bad immigration is. It gets a lot of campaign donations going, gets a lot of people elected. And on the other side, on the Biden side of the aisle, he gets a lot of heat on immigration. And so taking an action like this that is looks on its face to be pro-enforcement, sort of calms things down and settles things down from the folks who are afraid about immigration. They don't really understand what's going on, and they have the perception that Biden isn't doing anything about immigration. Of course, the bigger picture, the broader picture for everyone to keep in mind is that this is a nation that actually has quite a need for immigrant labor more than ever, and that's growing. And what we really need is for Congress to come together and pass immigration reform that expands immigration in the United States, and that this, that would settle things down along the southern border. But we also need to return to a time where we have an orderly process for accessing asylum protections for migrants.
You used the term a moment ago, Kate, chaos. Is this going to create even more chaos with what Biden did today?
I think it will. And the reason that I say that is because when they implement these changing policies along the border, it sends out messages. It starts these messages through social media, through the cartel, and they say, oh, the Biden administration did this, and that means that you can no longer use CBP-1, and that means that now you can only pay a coyote, and more people get kidnapped, more people get trafficked. Really what happens in all of these sort of changing policies is that the cartels and the violent criminal organizations seize upon these opportunities to take advantage of vulnerable migrants. And we have to keep that in mind, that what we're talking about for the most part, the vast majority of these people are legitimate asylum seekers who have fled very difficult circumstances that most of us can't even imagine. And so for us to come at this from, a fiscally responsible, but also a humanitarian perspective, what can we do to make sure that we are offering protection to the people who would qualify while also protecting the country against the people who don't qualify? And that is not just a carte blanche shutdown of the border. That doesn't achieve what we're after.
Kate, I haven't read too much in this. I've scanned through things. A concern I hear is about it does little to protect children, and the trafficking of children may increase, in fact, as a result of this. What's your take on that? Is that true? And what do you see happening with children who could be trafficked?
I do think that this would increase trafficking, and the reason for that is that there's a carve-out that says that this shutdown of the border doesn't apply to unaccompanied children, to kids who are alone. And on its face, you might think, oh, great, they're not going to, shut down the border to kids. But in reality, what happens is you have a migrant family, they're on the other side of the border. It's a mom and her two little kids, and she's fled domestic violence. She's desperate. She's poor. She's been kidnapped once before, and her little children are in danger. And so she faces the choice of remaining where she is with those children, not being able to protect them, or pinning the documents of those children to their clothes and sending them across the border because they are the ones that can get through. And I hope that no one listening to this interview ever has to make a choice like that. But I can tell you I've talked to many parents who have. And when we have policies like this that say, oh, we're shutting down the border, but kids, not to kids, then parents end up sending their kids over alone because it's the only way they know how to keep them safe. It's heartbreaking and it's gut-wrenching, and we are effectively separating families when we have policies like this.
Final question for you, Kate, and I appreciate your time today. I mean, I wonder how Americans are viewing this today, because my guess is most people are saying 5 months away from an election, he's now doing something that he could have done probably 3 years ago. This is pure politics. Is that the sense you're getting as well, Kate?
No, I hear from a lot of people who have all sorts of opinions about this because I'm pretty public about my position. And I think my reading of the situation is that most people have been hearing the voices on the right side of the aisle pretty loud and clear that, there's a dangerous surge of migration along the border and it must be stopped. And so to them, this headline appears as if Biden is solving the problem. And the thing that I think all of us need to recognize is that all of those messages about immigrants equal bad and dangerous that's politically motivated rhetoric that benefits only certain politicians. And the reality of the situation is the numbers aren't higher now at the border than they ever have been before. We always have fluctuations in populations. We are a nation of immigrants. We certainly can handle more immigrants and in fact need them. And so really what we need is sensible policies and an investment into the immigration infrastructure so that we can process more immigrants safely, and that benefits everybody.